was born during the latter reign of King Herod. But we now discover what appears to be another anomaly, because Luke says later in the Gospel that when Jesus was 12 years old, his parents, Mary and Joseph, took him to Jerusalem for the day. They then left the city to walk home for a full day's journey with their friends before they realized that Jesus was not in their party. They then returned to Jerusalem to find him at the temple, discussing his father's business with the doctors. Well, what sort of parents can wander for a whole day in the desert without knowing their 12-year-old son's not there? The fact is that the whole point of the passage has been missed. There was a wealth of difference between a 12-year-old son and a son in his 12th year. When a son, on completing his initial 12 years, that is to say, when he was actually on his 13th birthday, was initiated into the community at the ceremony of his second birth, he was regarded as commencing his first year. It was the original root of the modern bar mitzvah. His next initiation, the initiation of manhood in the community, took place in his 9th year, when he was 21, the root of the age 21 privilege. Various degrees followed, and the next major test was in his 12th year. At the end of his 12th year, at the age of 24, on his 24th birthday, when Jesus remained at the temple in his 12th year, he was actually 24. Not surprising that they expected him not perhaps to be wandering around the desert with them. So his discussion with the doctors related to his next degree. He would have discussed this at the time with the spiritual father, the father of the community, and indeed, he did. It was the father's business he discussed, his father's business. The father of this era is recorded. The spiritual father of the community at that time was Simeon the Essene, and if we look back a few verses in Luke, we see that it was exactly this man, the just and devout Simeon, who legitimated Jesus under the law. So can we trust the Gospels? Well, as we can see, the answer is yes. We can actually trust the Gospels to a point, but what we can't trust is the way that they've been convoluted and distorted and taught to us by people who don't understand what they actually said in the first place. The present English language Gospels date back effectively to the Authorized Bible, compiled for the Stuart King James I of England in the early 17th century. This was published and set into print no more than 165 years before America's Declaration of Independence, only a few years before the first Pilgrim Fathers set sail from England. The Gospels of the early Church were originally written in 2nd and 3rd century Greek. Along with the Bible as a whole, they were translated into Latin in the 4th century. But it was then to be more than 1,000 years before any English translation was made. Bible translation was risky then, though. 14th-century reformer John Wycliffe was denounced as a heretic for translating the Bible into English. His books were burned. In the early 16th century, William Tyndale was strangled as a form of execution in Belgium, and then burned, just in case he wasn't dead, for translating the Bible into English. A little later, Miles Coverdale, the disciple of his, made another translation, and by that time the church itself had split up quite nicely. So Coverdale's version was accepted by the Protestant Church, but he was still a heretic in the eyes of Rome. The problem was that as long as the printed text remained obscure and it wasn't just ordinary Latin, this was an horrendous form of Church Latin. As long as only the bishops could understand it, they could teach whatever on earth they wanted. If it were translated into the languages that other people could understand and maybe read for themselves, this would pose a problem because the church could be called to question.